Hi everyone, welcome to the Dream World podcast again. Peace and blessings to you all. Today's topic is very interesting. It's actually an excerpt from our Clubhouse discussion today. If you don't know about Clubhouse, you can message us on Instagram for an invite link. It's a great app for iPhones where, we have these weekly discussions about different topics that we are interested in, not only about dreams, but about astral projection and out-of-body experiences and just all the mysteries of the world. You can also find us on Instagram, and we're also going to have these conversations on Zoom for anybody to join in and give their opinion or ask questions. It's really an open discussion where all theories and all thoughts are accepted and embraced. So hopefully you guys can stay tuned, and welcome to today's episode about where are the ancient gods today? What happened to them? Do they still have power? Be sure to follow the Dream World podcast. It's hosted by myself and Ashaba. We do these groups every week, so please follow us and check us out every episode. So it's an interesting topic because, so you have to first define what is a god as opposed to the one God, And, by definition, it's a being, usually non-material, which has supernatural powers that can direct reality, and humans have a relationship with them. So you can worship Zeus, Apollo, even Elvis. You can worship anything as your god. And is it real? Is it there? So, proving the existence of gods is, not always been an easy thing. But here we're going to talk about what happens when people stop believing in them. Do they live on? Where are they? Where do they go? So just the idea that the concept of God and gods are still in our language, and language defines reality, as a lot of philosophers will say. So these gods haven't really gone anywhere. They're not ceasing to exist because our language still names them. We still give them existence because we know about them. We learn about them in school, right? So just because it's named, does it have to exist? That's the next question. Well, I would say yes, because they're living through our human consciousness. We're still thinking about them. We're still learning about them. They interact with the world through our stories. So that's something to think about. And, they're still a part of our written culture, in our living belief. So it brings us back to that question. If language and culture creates our reality, are they a part of our reality still? There's a lot of theories that we'll get into about, what type of middle world they've gone into, or where they could be or where they hang out. But, it's also interesting to note that, they can also change throughout time. Like, what was the example I was thinking of? I think it was like the Virgin Mary. In Rome, they call her the Madonna of Birth, and they have the marble statue of the goddess Juno, with a Renaissance head of Mary replacing the old goddess's head. So, these gods and the beliefs can change, and I feel like they adapt with our beliefs. To me, the best answer to where all these gods have gone, it's kind of like a middle world, part of like the dream world, but maybe like a different plane, where all of our creations and everything we can imagine and all these myths and characters and theorems and songs and magic, they've been created, and it's kind of like a computer file or like a library. They stay in the universe somewhere, in this cultural world or this imaginal world, right? Imaginal is not to say fake or imaginary, but more so like an in-between, like a cosmic library that's dependent on human existence and our information. Some people call this extra-dimensional world glad shame, I think. They've given names to it. It's like an alternate Earth with different rules where all the gods live. It's like a kingdom where they all stay at. And it's just kind of like an interesting concept, because they still do draw power from us. Even though maybe most people don't believe in them anymore, especially in the West, they still draw powers from us in movies and books and comics. So it's interesting that they do walk with us to this day. And, it's even more interesting that in parts of the world, like the Caribbean or Eastern Asia or certain parts of the world where these practices are still common and people still actively believe in the gods or whatever creature, there's more sightings and more events that you hear about. So it's almost like they go to where they are heard and worshipped.
Well, interesting. It's an interesting theory and concept. So we know that when we are talking of ancient gods, we are talking, we're not only limited to the Greek mythology, across the centuries, different tribes or different, different tribes across the world, they all worship different deities and different gods and goddesses and all of that. So we are talking about Asian gods. Yes, we are talking about the likes of Zeus and Poseidon, and if you maybe go to the Egypt side, the Egypt gods and all those gods, people worshipped by a certain time. And I think for us to understand its real theory, or to go deeper into it, we have to look at how did people treat them then, so that you had the goddess of war, the gods of war, the goddesses of love, and people believed that maybe one goddess was against the other. So you go into that world where there was once a time where people used to pray to these gods, and these gods used to serve them, just like how we have ministers in parliament, and they would sit on these councils because this was a god maybe of war, this was a god of what, you needed to sacrifice this to bring on the god of war, and people truly believed in them. So I believe in that time they were their highest, greatest power. And then it reached a time where people abandoned all of that and they decided we have to look at one God, There is no need to look at all these gods. There is one supreme God, So they forgot these other gods. And I believe they grew stronger from our worship, the people's prayers being remembered, all of that, having faith, would give them power. So that would mean that right now where we are, where some people don't even believe in gods and all of that at all, I believe maybe they're really weak and out there. I don't know about the other kingdom. What was it called, Amina?
Glad Shame. It's an alternate Earth with different rules, home to all the Earth gods.
I was going to say, when you look at it, I feel like explore this theory with me, guys. So I believe that, they walk among us and they influence us in certain ways, because some of the times when you look at the movies and how they portray these goddesses, there has to be someone out there who's trying to tell us a story of how these goddesses used to appear, or these gods used to appear, And when you see it like in the movie form, you think, oh, this is just a movie. But sometimes there is too much there. It's like you're always seeing it from the god's view or the goddess's view and how they were seeing, things. So I feel like they walk among us, and, some of them will try to maybe get more followers or get more, worshippers, those who believe in them through these movies these days. When you watch a movie, you see a goddess you've never heard of, and you're like, oh wow, she must be great. I feel like even in that moment, you're remembering her. So she's getting this power. So there are always these messages here and there. I think they keep on sending. And I still believe that there are people out there who believe in them. Honestly, I don't believe that the entire world, stopped believing. There are people who still believe. If I look at the Egyptians, they're really still believing into, or they still believe that their gods are there, and some of them still pray to them. You find they have these statues that represent different gods and goddesses. So I believe that they are still there because some people still remember them and they still pray to them. So that gives them their power, and they're not forgotten, and they're remembered. The more they are remembered, the more they become stronger. So some people do worship them. Other tribes have abandoned them. For me, I come from Africa, and I think in my mother's tribe, when I was growing up, I used to hear about these different, gods. It's very fascinating. It's not only in, Greek mythology, because my mom was telling me that there was a god of like water, there was a god of even they told them, in school they teach us this, I think at primary level, social studies, that the war gods, there is a god of water. We have a name here, I think it's called, it's, you won't understand, but I think I'll just say it. It's called Mukasa, which means god of water. And then there is the god of the hunt. Like when you're going out to hunt, there is a god that you summon to help you, when you're going to hunt, so that you are successful or that you're lucky. So it's like people believed in these gods way before, and they used to summon them for different things. Like there was a god for everything. There was a god for love. There was a god for this. So if you have one thing that you're focusing on, that is the god that you summon, and that is the god that helps with your problem. So there was a time when people really believed and worshipped in them because they were spread across, and they knew that the more love and the more adoration you give to your god, the stronger they will come in, to help you. So these are really fascinating theories from my point of view when you think about it. But yeah, so I do believe that they are remembered. where we are now. They do walk among us and they are remembered by some people, you know, but the rest of us focus on that one God. So, yeah, I mean, do you have anything to add?
I mean, I agree. Like you said, there are definitely people that still believe in them because like everybody in the world has their own beliefs, and there's still, people still have encounters, and maybe even not on not on this plane, but my friend Martin from our WhatsApp group, he has multiple encounters with different gods in his dreams, and he's really connected with his past lives and his ancestors. So he encounters them all the time, and if he were here, he would say that they are still with us. Like you say, they walk among us. They draw power from us, tapping into them with movies and stories. And even though maybe it's sci-fi to us, like there's always a truth to sci-fi. So I agree with what you said, and I think even just us talking about them in this types of conversation, like they feel acknowledged. So a lot of times we assume that if a god is divine, then it's divine everywhere, and everyone would agree. But in the ancient world, it wasn't necessarily true. Their gods were often local to certain regions or tribes. So if you could worship a small number of, local divinities, and then maybe there was major divinities shared by a bigger region. So it was definitely by location. So it was relative. And that's just interesting as well. And then welcome, Casey, to the stage. I just added you to the stage, so we would love to hear from you if you have any thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this last night, more in kind of the comparison of different gods across different cultures, how there's a lot of similarities in terms of thought patterns of how people label different gods and stuff like that. And I know, Joseph Campbell did a lot of work on comparing mythology and stuff. But it's like, I feel like whenever we have a question that's not answered, especially in ancient times before people started to think about science, is the best way to understand something is to anthropomorphize it. So basically put it in human form. So like in ancient Greece, how do you understand the nature of the ocean and what it's like? And you make it as a person and you make it temperamental, because the ocean can be temperamental. It can go from, completely calm and still one moment to being a thunderous storm. So I always kind of think of it in terms of like everything has a personality in this universe, and across different borders, we somehow come to similar conclusions about the same thing. So I kind of am of the opinion that the concepts behind the gods, behind what we deem to be, this personality or that personality, I think is maybe their more true nature, and the names and the different clothes and shapes and forms that we put on those concepts and ideas, I think are more transient and can change with culture, change with time, change with our own interaction with the world. So I always just kind of think of it as the step behind the concepts, and that being their true form. Another one, like for an example, could be in India. They have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and Brahma being the creator, Vishnu being the sustainer, and Shiva being the destroyer, and they all have the personality of each of those things. Yet in its essence, it literally is just they're describing the functions of time, beginning, middle, and end. And their father, they say their father is time. The father is call and time. And so it's a human way for us to understand that everything in this universe has a beginning, middle, and end. And when we put the concepts behind it, it makes it more real to us. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's always a way for us to just, like you said, define the universe we live in. But that kind of makes me question, Casey, what do you think? Like, if everything has a beginning, middle, and an end, do these beings or deities, like, do they eventually die? Do they end? Do they live on immortally through different realms? Like, how does that work?
I believe it's actually more of a position than anything else. Just like you can have a king, a ruler, and as one king goes, another king comes up. I believe that there's just certain positions that everything is transient. And so say you're here in this physical universe and you do a hell of a lot of good karma and you just, kick the shit out of good karma. And so you get rewarded by maybe having a position where you are like a ruler of a heaven, or you're a ruler of a certain stage for a certain period of time. And then when you paid off that good karma, somebody else comes in and you either get reincarnated, you come back down, you go and pay off some other karma somewhere else. So I believe that, everything kind of shifts and transitions.
Casey, thanks for sharing. It was really profound and very insightful. And you know what I was going to say? I was going to say that I believe that if as humans, we know that we can create, we have the ability to create, that there was a time where we created these different deities, and whenever, someone would talk about it, the other one would have a picture, until this really became reality. It started out as just an imagination, but it finally became a deity that was, supposed to be a god of water, a god of this, and they existed because the humans gave them power. And the more, we thought about them, or the more we thought, about them, the more we created them. And the more we said, they do this is what they do, and that is what they did, we're giving them life. That is also another theory that I'm thinking of. And when we reached a time and we stopped thinking about them, then we were taking away their power, and they can only sustain through our memories of them and what they used to do and how strong they used to be. I think I really like this TV series. I don't know if any of you has watched it, American Gods, where they have the new gods and the old gods. These may look like just science fiction movies, but I do always believe that there is always spiritual insight behind these movies. And if you really look, you find these clues that, are giving you, like an idea of what happened or what is happening, because I do believe that among us, you find that they pose themselves as humans, as we are, and you wouldn't know. But they'll still try to make themselves be remembered, because the more you remember them, the more you give them life. That is what I think. And when I watched the American Gods and I was seeing Odin, the god of war, I couldn't help but realize the resemblance. Like, it was not only, in these different cultures, but across the world, even in places, because if you're looking at the world, it was more of like, you have different continents. You have Africa and you have America. But if you look at these, theories of gods, or what, we used to call gods, or what we used to believe, is that even across all these different nations, we all had the same gods somehow. So we still had some common gods, along the way. Because you'd find someone has never even been to Africa, but when they reach Africa, they find that these Africans were already having some gods they were worshipping. And then you would go like in, somewhere, some other culture, maybe the native Indians, you find they also have certain gods for different things. So that is really fascinating. So which means that we could have created them through our thoughts, that they really became live. And when I saw American Gods and I saw how they were talking about the old gods and the new gods being the technology and all of that. And I do believe that for me, that there was a point whereby we had all these different gods, and then religion came along, and now we were focusing on one god at a time, rather than spreading it all out. So if those gods existed, I believe that they would hold so much hate for this other god that came in, and people are like now worshipping that person and forgetting the other gods. And these are all theories, and that is why we're here, to explore, what happened to them.
Yeah, if I could follow up after that. It begs the question, if we have power over the gods in some way, like that our belief in them is what creates or diminishes them, then who are we? And in the Hindu mythology, and they talk about like we have the different chakras in our own body, and each chakra is associated with a different god. So like the bottom one is Ganesh, and then Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, Shakti, and then at the top is our own self. So they're saying in the end, your own highest self is above all of these lower deities, and that these lower deities are serving a purpose and a function to maintain these different universes. But our own true nature is above all of that. And so it's only our mind and our beliefs and our interactions in this universe that sustains them as well.
Oh my God, Casey, that is amazing. Like the way you explain that, above all, it's us, which means we have power over these gods and these deities. So that really makes sense. And the way you explained it, I mean, I feel like we should bring him onto our podcast, because the way he explained it was so amazing about the chakras and each being related to another god. I mean, running different universes. I think that is really. Could you talk more about that? It was really fascinating.
Sure. I mean, please don't give me credit for all this. I'm literally just stealing all this from Hinduism. So it's really just Hinduism that explains things in very, very great detail. So in kind of the story of creation, which there's a really interesting parallel between Hinduism and Christianity, because in Hinduism, in the oldest of their texts, it says, in the beginning was the Nod, and the Nod created God, and the Nod means sound. It just said, so the sound, in the beginning was the sound, and the sound created God, and the sound was God. And then in Christianity, you have, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the question is, why are we saying there's something that's above God, something that is audible, something that you can say it's a sound or it's a word, it's something I can hear? And so they say in the meditational practices, if you move closer and closer to your own consciousness, you hear a sound. And all these religions try to mimic that sound through bells, through, in Buddhism, they say the conch sound. They have a different representation of something that you can hear. In Greek, they call it the music of the spheres. In Islam, they call it the Bangyasmani, the music from the sky or something like that. So every religion has like their own version of the sound. And so they say that our true highest self is connected all the way to the top, and that the true God is actually our own highest self. It's the totality of our own consciousness. Because if you say there's something beyond time, something that exists beyond time and space, say the three of us, we all have an individual soul and individual consciousness, individual experiences, and each of us are separated by time and space. We're born at different times, we're born in different places, and so it's only time and space that separates us. But what if you were to say, let's remove all the time and space between the three of us? What's left? You can't say that I'm different from you or different from anybody because there's no separation. So it's not saying that like me as Casey is the highest, beyond. It's basically the totality of our own consciousness. So they describe like the spiritual journey as being like a drop in an ocean that forgot that it was the whole ocean, and it just thought it was one little drop. Then when it raised its awareness, became aware that it was the whole ocean. I don't know if that clarified things or
Wow.
or is that just made it more complicated?
No, wow. Honestly, I am just, I don't know. It's really amazing. It's not complete. I believe I may not speak for Amina, but I understand everything. Like everything you're saying makes so much sense. I don't feel like, maybe I missed a bit somewhere. No, it is amazing because then when you get that theory of a drop in the ocean, then you realize you think you're one, this thing that we keep saying, I, or something. I mean, anyway, I won't go deeper into that. But I feel like when you say that, then when we understand that we are part of the entire consciousness, not just one small drop of it, then we connect with it and we know how powerful we are. And we know that, we are gods, and we create and we decide what is it's going to make us happy or not. Above it all, we can create our own realities. But it takes time. It's like there is this journey that we all always have to go through when we come here of trying to remember who we are. And the final stage is us remembering that all along we were gods. And I think usually that's what may happen when someone's dying. I feel like when people say they see the light, it's like then now you're connecting to the entire source and the true consciousness, and you're connecting to it when you're dying. And in that moment to realize all along that you are God, but now you can't come back. It's done, so you go. But for some, they're fortunate enough to remember that along the way. And it's what my mom was telling me. She told me yesterday when I was asking about this topic, and she said something along those lines of when you reach death, then you know the secret of the universe and everything and who we are. But then it's already too late because you've already left your body, so you can't go back. But the difference between then and now is that now we have the ability to have things like out-of-body experiences where we get to induce them. So we get to connect to the true source and the higher source and all of that. So I do understand what you're saying about the drop in the ocean. I think it's really an amazing theory.
Yeah, there's also an interesting passage in the Hebrew Bible and the Torah and the Christian Bible, and different people have interpreted it in different ways. But there was one very famous rabbi who gave a talk on it, and it's the passage where Moses asked God, "Hey, can I see you?" And God was like, "No, you can't see me, but you can look at my back, or you can look at my shoulder." And if you look at somebody's back, you don't see their face, but you look from behind them, you can see what they're seeing. So it was kind of like a physical way to describe, you can't see God, but you can become God and see from God. You can see from God's perspective. You can see what God sees by standing behind him. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
Thank you for that insight. And when you think about it, what would it be like to watch through the eyes of God? What would it feel like? It would feel like the whole world, is at your feet. Wow, the whole world will be actually at your feet when you see yourself through the eyes of God. So nothing will be impossible. You can achieve anything. And trying to use this knowledge to our day-to-day life would show that, you know that you can own anything you want to, and you choose the life that you get to live. But we never realize this, unfortunately. But that is why we have such rooms, talk about such things and explore all of that.
And it's interesting because there's still some sort of like hierarchy of like gods, right? So like, where does that put us?
You know what? You're right. Because when you were saying that, I was thinking about it. I feel like even in the God, there are these different ranks, the higher gods, these gods, those lower gods. But what Casey said earlier of us being above all of these other deities, I was like, that is amazing. Like if we see ourselves in that way, then we do know that we have the power over the gods, that we have power over them.
Yeah, and it makes sense. If we give them power by believing in them, then we are the ones creating them, right? In a way, like, or giving them power. So it's interesting how powerful our minds are. The thing that has created their dormancy was the rise of Christianity, which has shifted the thought process to this is one God and every other God is terrible, as a demon or not existent or whatever, right?
Because then it means that we no longer believe in them. And if we no longer believe in them, then we no longer remember them. And if we are not remembering them, then we are not consciously creating them. you know? So it means we're not creating them, so they're not existing. And that is why sometimes, they will disappear. I believe that's what happens actually, because they're forgotten. But it's only, that is just one theory, because not everyone has forgotten about them. Like I said, there would be some other humans who still worship them through those simple acts of remembering, those simple acts of days. Like, I can't even believe, like, for example, the Indian gods, they are still worshipped so much. The ancient gods they had way before, they're still worshipping those same gods. They've not changed them. So that means that they do still believe in their ancient gods. So those gods are existing.
Yes, for sure. And I know that there's a lot of neo-pagans that choose the Olympian gods, and even Roman and Greek revivalists who claim to have returned to the worship of Zeus and Apollo and Roman counterparts. Those neo-pagans are involved in, these revivalist activities, and they reenact, Roman gods. They cook from Roman recipes, and they give attention to these cultures. And, they keep in touch with each other throughout the world from the internet and all that stuff. And they even try to, recover things from the undersea ruins of Atlantis. So there's a huge community of people that give attention to these things and these gods. So I think they are very much still alive among us, and maybe they're hanging out with the people that believe in them.
I believe that is true, because if I look at the South Americans, how they remember some of their gods, that god of death, who's during every celebration, she's always remembered. So that she's still existing, because, people still believe in her. Once in a while, they come back to that. But I also believe that maybe if we don't remember them and we stop, I believe that there are gods that died, that not all gods are there. I believe the only ones that are still here are the ones that people still remember to some extent and still worship to some extent, if that makes sense, I believe the others died out because no one was remembering them. People forgot about them. So they disappeared. And those ones that are existing currently are the ones that people remember to some extent, and through special days, through, faiths and all of that, praying unto them and all of that. So I believe those, still exist.
Yeah, Ashaba, I agree with you. And what's crazy is so when you say they died out, is it really like a death? Do they just go somewhere else? Because, Casey was saying earlier, we really just kind of transition from one life or one existence to another. Are they dead? Their consciousness doesn't exist anymore? What do you mean by they die out?
Probably they disappear, like how, Tom Stark disappeared in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Let me add Jennifer to the stage real quick. She has something to say. I love it.
Hi.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yeah, I was going to say that even when they don't exist, or we think they don't because they're not in our reality, I've had, for example, in dreams, certain gods appear that I didn't know were out there, and then I Googled it, and turns out they were something. Like, for example, to think of ancient times, depending on where I've had from ancient Egypt, Thoth, Nefertiti, Hermes, Greek and ancient Egypt, and then in Hindu, in ancient India, I've had Shiva, and all of these without me knowing who they were. I even had a dream about Imhotep, which is supposedly Hermes, but it's like this whole woven thing that has come through me in dreams and has made me investigate them when I was younger, and therefore I formed a connection. So I feel like even though our conscious mind forgets, our unconscious mind has gone through way more, and there's so much that we don't know. So I'm always curious as to how it rises from the depth of our soul knowledge, or God knows where, astral experiences. But I like it when that happens, because I feel connected to something that is beyond my conscious awareness.
Yeah, that's so interesting, and I actually I resonate with that so much because I've also dreamed of gods and deities and angels that I didn't know of, and I'll Google it, and it's always trippy when you Google something in a dream and it's a thing or it's real, and you're like, wow, like I got this message from the universe, or they visit you, and encounters them, and it's really interesting. And it's actually very common to dream with certain gods. I think they do visit us in our dreams. The dream world is definitely a place, even if they've died out or gotten weaker, they definitely, want us to acknowledge them. And we still do in movies and shows and comics and stuff. So I think they're alive to some extent, even if it's in sci fi or in our dreams. But I always, sometimes even on purpose, I'll summon gods or angels or whoever, ancient gods, just to hear from them and give them acknowledgement. So I think that's powerful. And yeah, thanks for sharing.
Jennifer, that was really amazing, and I'm actually really happy that this club is attracting such people. Have such experiences. That is really profound. Being able to be visited by gods in your dreams and interacting with them. I think that is really amazing, and I feel like those days when people believed in them that they would come upon them or they would help them, they always came through, for them, and they helped them. And that is why you may even still have people who believe in them even to this day and age. But just because they're not in our eyesight, most of us, don't even think about them. I've never been, I've never worshipped any other god apart from the one true God, because that is what I grew up, worshipping, and that is what I grew up knowing, So that means there was a one God whereby everyone stopped all these other gods and they decided to focus on that one God to have all of that power. But I like what Casey said earlier. It was really amazing because he said that when you using the chakra, what did he say? Chakra roots,
The root chakra?
Yeah, so the different chakras represented different deities or different gods, but he said that at the top of it all, it was us, and that means us being greater than all the gods because we create them and we give them power, so we are the top of it all. And I think also in the grand scheme of things, when we realize that, when we come to that realization all along that we were God, that is when we connect back and we awaken to our true God self,
Today's episode is sponsored by Podcorn, which is an amazing marketplace connecting podcasters to sponsorship opportunities, such as ads, interviews, and discussions. I've been using Podcorn myself, and it's been really helpful in growing my podcast, finding new listeners, and getting sponsorships. Click the link in my show notes to sign up to Podcorn and start browsing sponsorship opportunities.
I was trying to take that in. I wanted to say that there have been so many connections inside of me with gods, I guess, through dreams and other experiences that I even though I was raised Catholic, I was very scared of Jesus because, they tell you he's going to punish you or whatever parents tell me if I misbehave, and he was always on the cross bleeding. And for me, that was never a nice image. I was very scared of it. So when Jesus began to enter my dream space, like the image of Jesus, I had to work through it. Like, it was really difficult. I did not want Jesus' dreams. And it was so freaky. But what happened was I used my lucid dreams to overcome that. So I focused on like a meditating Jesus, more like a Buddha kind of energy, and eventually that evolved. And whenever he would come into my dreams or my waking reality sphere, I would not have that same reaction. But the same feeling I get with Thoth, the Egyptian god. I just felt strange about the bird head. It was never comfortable for me to look at the bird head or the bird eyes looking at me. So I had to work through that. And that one I'm still working through because it's a little difficult, but I have accepted some of his teachings, and listen to him in my dreams. And I still get people coming up to me in my dreams and saying, you need to learn the teachings of Thoth. And so that's kind of the journey I've been on for the past year. But yeah, I guess I'm open to the gods, but not in the worshiping way. It's kind of different. Like you said, it's more of an inner exploration.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's really I always find it so fascinating, honestly. And what you were saying about, growing up Catholic and having that, image and all of that, I understand that, because what I noticed in the Christian religion is that there is a lot of self-condemnation, You're always seeing yourself as sinner, you're always seeing yourself as not worthy. And we all know that even in this world, when it comes to manifestation and all of that, or creating, you have to believe that you're worthy all those things that you want, So by knowing that you are a God, you're worthy of all of that. So, but in Christianity, it creates that of, you're always condemning yourself. You're always seeing yourself as a sinner. And it's like you're living in your own man-made prison, because you're not free. You're not free to do anything that will make you happy. So you're always worried there is a God who's there out watching you, who's going to punish you, and just sitting right there, to throw you into hell. So you always have that at the back of your mind, But for me, I was never born a Christian. I converted at a later time. And when I was entering that Christianity, for me, I entered from the Jesus of love. I went knowing that, his love, that is what I went for. And I think when I had my heavenly realm experience, when I had I think either outer body and, I was taken to the heavenly realm, the Jesus that I met was true to the picture that I knew, because actually it wasn't true to the picture that I knew, was the opposite of the picture that I knew, because the picture that I knew when I had Christians talking, he was always judgmental, waiting to punish you for the bad things that you've done, waiting to throw you into hell, just there judging you, constantly looking at you and monitoring all your thoughts, all your movements, like as if he doesn't have enough things to do in heaven. Anyway, so you start feeling like I can't do anything because there is this person watching me, which last time makes me always think that, does that even make me, like I'm in a reality show if my every move is being watched, So anyway, when I visited the heavenly realm and I met this Jesus, it was so different, because the Jesus that I met was love so pure. I can't even explain it. Like I felt no judgment at all. Like I felt like perfect in his eyes, truly perfect in his eyes, and there was nothing like I could do that could make this guy or entity that was in front of me want to punish me, So there was pure bliss. I was filled in ecstasy. It was such an amazing feeling, being there with the angels, singing and all of that. And then that is when I realized, okay, so the Jesus you're going to receive is, how you relate to him. If you know the Jesus of judgment, that is the Jesus that you're going to be met with. But if you know him from the point of love, then you're going to be met by the point of love of the one who does not, does not judge you, who is caring, a father, a mother, all those things that you need, and is not judging you at any one point. Then that is the Jesus that you're going to encounter, the one of love, full of love. And then everything will be beautiful, because in his eyes you're perfect and there is no mistake that you can make. So yeah. I don't know if that is adding anything.
Yeah, I was going to say the last experience I had, because I knew it wasn't going to stop. It was like very persistent dreams. I was in a highway with my husband in a car in my dream, and suddenly the dream just froze, and I was like, uh-oh. Like I felt it. And the headlights, there was Jesus with his open arms. And I'm like, okay, I need to face this fear and transform it. So I got out of the car and I went over to him and I put my hands in his hands. And immediately I felt like I was just focusing on that. But then he said to look down, and I was on the cliff and he was off the cliff, like levitating. And at that point, I just threw myself into his arms and we fell down the cliff, but it was like a loving fall. It was very, like you said, like I had released all the judgments, I surrendered. That's the word. I totally surrendered to it. And ever since then, I've had the complete opposite experience from the beginning. And I felt like I really healed that, like, Jesus of shame and guilt.
And the thing is that when you say that, the Jesus of shame, it makes so much sense, because I believe truly that Jesus in the Bible was bringing spirituality and love, but because humans are subject to error, even the guys who wrote the Bible, I don't believe they recounted everything the way it was. I feel like somewhere they added in their own biases. You have you have some guys, like, I don't know, I think one guy who was like so against women, like, women shouldn't do this, and I was reading that part of the Bible and I'm like, honestly, this guy was just adding in his own biases, to try and make a point, So when you go back, okay, this is comic relief, and I know you guys will relate to it. So let us think, this guy has gone and seen, maybe like he's been like an apostle or something, seated there, seeing Jesus do some miracles and seeing all this good stuff. And he's like, okay, I'm going to write about it. So he's like, okay, so everyone knows this guy is this, the Messiah, everyone is going to believe him. So this guy starts writing, he's like, okay, so this is what, and then he starts writing things like, I think I should add this in, my wife is so bitchy to me, she never listens to me. But if I say Jesus said that, then, tomorrow when she reads this, she's going to be like, okay, that is true. And then this guy just adds in his things of, women should never talk back to their husbands in the Bible. Women should never, he writes his entire scroll, and one day, all these scrolls are collected and the Bible is made. But these guys were telling stories with their own biases, because we always have that human bias. When you're reporting a story, you add in your own emotions and feelings, And I always say that these were humans like us, the apostles and all of that. So we can't see them as God. So we know that they are subject to error, and they're going to add in shit that wasn't even supposed to be there, And then you're going to find people going with their every word and believing them. But I believe that in the Bible, when Jesus was there, he was actually fighting against that religion. Because if you're to look even in the Bible, the people who were against Jesus the most were the people of the church, the Pharisees, the Pharisees. These guys already had churches that were there, and the people who fought Jesus the most were these church elders. Isn't that weird? Because if he's Christian, Jesus is Christ, the Son of God, and all of that, and he's coming, you'd think that, the Christians would welcome him. He's saying he's the Son of God, but no, they were against him the most, And the people who welcomed him were actually these people who weren't even, very religious, are the ones who listened to him. And I believe that Jesus was just bringing spirituality and just connecting people to our true higher selves and higher consciousness. But people twisted the teachings, and they started, adding in their own narratives to start, to push that, whatever they wanted to push. And then it reached a time, and it has caught on so much, and then people, now saw it as a way of worshiping. But even the guy, Pontius Pilate or something like that, the guys of the church, the Catholic Church, I don't even know whether it was, I think it was already existing, actually Roman, Pontius Pilate, the one who said that Jesus should die, was, I think, in Rome, and it was already existing. Religion was already existing even before Christ, And when he came, he was fighting against it. He was not aligning with it. He was fighting against it, and he was bringing us back to, because he was saying, you are created in the image of God. That is what he's telling people. So you are God, And it's like, I am Christ who is within you. So each and every one of us is Christ, You can't be Christ, because that means that these are words that Jesus was saying. He was bringing us back to that one consciousness of, the power is with you, and you can connect directly to God, to the higher consciousness, to source. And that is what he was bringing. And he was fighting against religion, He was just a spiritual guy telling you all the things about God. My Father in heaven, I have everything I need. If you pray and you believe that you've gotten it, then you have it already. He wasn't saying if you pray and you look at me, then you get. He's like, if you pray and you believe that you have it, you yourself, then you have it already. So that is your power, and that is what he was bringing. And the church at that time wasn't having any of that, because now it was taking them away and really showing the world who they truly are, that, they were with money and all of that, or they just wanted money out of it, and control and politics and all of that. So I believe, for me, Jesus didn't bring religion, he brought spirituality. And how you approach him is up to you. But the Jesus that you perceive is a Jesus that you're going to attract or get. Sorry. So if you believe he's judging you at every step of the way, and you made a sin, so you deserve to be punished, then you're going to be punished, because that is what you believe. So that is what you shall receive. But if you see him from the point of Jesus of love, and you perceive him from that point of love, then it is love that you shall attract, and you shall attract a Jesus that forgives, a Jesus that understands, a Jesus that is there for you when you need him, and just supplying you with this much love, and you are perfect in his eyes. So you will never feel any form of judgment. And people who perceive a Jesus like that, are the ones who accept anyone or everyone for whoever they are. Because you know that you are coming from a place of true love, and you don't need to be threatened by anything around you, So.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I really resonate with that. I think everything you said was amazing because, like, it's important to realize that the Bible was written 40 to 50 years after Jesus died. So like you said, there was a lot of broken telephone going on. There was a lot of interpretations that were relative to that time period. They weren't aware that they are gods, that they are the creators of their reality. You know what I mean? Like, not as much as us. So it's interesting, they tell us to fear God, to fear, but it's more of love. And I think it is what you attract. And I think that there's no judgment here, because nobody's sin is greater than another. But it's about love, not fear. Yeah, welcome, Jaime. Whatever you have to say, please join in. I know you just joined, but...
Thank you, Amina and Ashaba. Hello, and Casey and Jennifer and Fadi. Good to see you all. Interesting conversation. I came in kind of halfway with that, but I try to resonate with Ashaba, what she was talking about. How, if you feel Jesus is going to treat you, or how you feel that if you've done something wrong, you're going to be judged, that's what's going to happen to you. But if you still come from a place of love and kindness and compassion, I think you're already setting up what is going to be your judgment. So I don't feel like I have to live afraid of a God, and I don't think I have to be ashamed or anything that I'm doing, because supposedly we're here to learn, to experience. So we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So therefore, I don't believe we're going to be judged unless it's harmful, that we're harming other people, we're harming ourselves, and things like that. I'm sure it's probably the loss of judgment, or, you got to pay for the bad karma, you got to pay for what you do. But if you're constantly in a place of kindness and love and compassion, then you have nothing to worry about. So I was just loving everything you guys were talking about. And so happy to be here. This is Jaime Andon speaking.
Thank you, Jaime. And you know what? Let me tell you, even if, for example, if you're to look at one of the greatest books ever written, the spiritual books out there, the Bible, and you're going to find a passage that says you are created in God's image, So when it says that you're created in God's image, what does this mean? It means that all of us have the essence of God within us. So when I look at you, I see God. When you look at me, you look at God. When you understand it from that perspective, then it's ridiculous to hate your neighbor and you say you love God, because your neighbor is God. We are created in the image of God. When we understand that, then you can't look at someone and hate them because they look a certain color, or someone because maybe they are from a certain race. It doesn't make sense, because if we are all created from the image of God, then in all essence, we are all God. And me loving my neighbor means that I'm loving myself, That's what it means, It means that we are gods. And when you treat your neighbor right, you are treating yourself right, When you love yourself enough, then you will love your neighbor. That is how it goes, because we realize this. So when you go with that, you will not look at someone and hate them because of, their beliefs or their belief systems, that is not going to happen, because you're going to be coming from that point of ye are gods, or you are created in the image of God. Whether your nose is big or something, you are created in the image of God. So that means God looks like you. But if the same goes for your neighbor, that means also God looks like your neighbor. So if you hate your neighbor, you're hating your God. And so you start doing for others good things, loving other people, not judging them, not, blaming them for different things and all of that. Of course, I feel like whenever you say that, I'm implied to say, how about if someone is treating me bad in those cases? I understand that. I'm just trying to say how it was meant to be, how it was meant to be was for us to love each other, for us to help each other, because when you love yourself enough and it spills over onto your neighbor, the neighbor is going to love another person, and it goes on. And, it's a chain, and it brings back this beautiful, bountiful abundance that surrounds us, and we're just in this amazing environment. So for me, when someone says they hate their neighbor because they're a different thing from them, and then they say they love God, I'm like, that is ridiculous. You are lying. You can't say you love God, but you hate someone just because they believe different from you. Then you aren't. That is, So yeah, just wanted to add on that. Amen.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with you. I have read that passage in the Bible that we are sons of God. Therefore, like you say, what does it make us then? And my mom kept saying the same thing too to me when I was growing up. I said, you are the son of a God. So that makes you an amazing person, an incredible person. And she used to tell me those kind of things, so I will never put myself down for anything. Because according to the scriptures, I always kept saying that we have the encoded DNA of a God, encoded in us already. We just need to tap into it and allow it to wake up those dormant cells that we have from when we were created. These are just thoughts that I have. There's no. I don't scientifically on all the stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I can only speak for my own experiences or what I feel. I feel that we have the DNA, the encoded DNA of a God, and it's dormant, and we got to tap into it and allow it to manifest. So, and it's incredible. I mean, so far, look at right now how we are connecting with each other. We are getting downloads. We're getting like what I call the Holy Ghost is being spread out all over the world, in a sense, according to the scriptures, how it's played out. So right now we said we're getting downloads. We're getting energetically, we're getting connected. But in Bible times, it said that the Holy Ghost was going to be spread out all over the world, and we're going to start having visions, having dreams, and be more connected with God. So, and I feel it, I feel it like that's happening right now. It's happening that we are becoming more aware of who we are and our essence of who we are as human beings and as spiritual beings. So it feels like finally it's becoming more revealed to us. I mean, it's been spoken before and things like that, but now we're feeling it, we're seeing it, and that's a good way of allowing our Creator to be manifested and allow it to all those gifts that are within us to be seen in this physical world. That's something that I always have felt, and first time I'm expressing it. So, but thank you, Ashaba, for making me think about this and allow it to express it. So, Jaime, this is Jaime, and I'm done speaking.
Thanks, Jaime. That's beautiful, and it's so powerful. And I mean, you're so right. Like it's the Great Awakening. That's why they call it the Great Awakening, because we're all realizing where we come from and what we're here for, and just the truth behind everything, and we're creating our own interpretations of everything. Like, that's why the universe gives us all these stories and downloads, so we can understand how we want to understand it. And yeah, it's truly amazing. I love this group because it's something so new, not new to me, but we've never had a topic like this where we can just comfortably talk about gods and religions and what happened to them and all this. So
I wanted to add that speaking of the power we give to gods, that there are certain symbols that have a lot of power already because of the collective that has empowered it. So I feel like sometimes when you tune into a certain deity or even a power symbol or a place, I feel like that it holds that power. It has its own little vortex because of all of the people that have put their focus and belief into it, and therefore it already is empowered on its own. I guess it comes alive in that way, so it's not just like the individual, but the collective experience of God or other.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your insights. And I also been thinking about something like most of these gods were very unruly, and some of them would come like in human form. So I do believe that maybe some of them have like half children out there who are half god, half humans. So where are those? Are those existing? For example, if you go into the Greek mythology, is it Hercules, the one who's half?
there's a few. Yeah, there's a lot actually.
Yeah.
Because
So
these gods, they were horny. They were having sex with humans. That's for sure from the stories.
Yeah. Also, I really think the Japanese way of defining God in the traditional Shinto religion is really interesting. So the word that they use for God is kami, and it doesn't quite translate well to God in the English language because it just more means like extraordinary, like spectacular, something that is like truly marvelous. So say, for example, you're in a forest and there's one particular tree that's just really old and just really beautiful. They're going to say, oh, well, that tree is a kami. That tree is a god tree. Or if there's a person who's really extraordinary, who just like, say like Elon Musk because he's, just so smart and so blah, 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 they might say he's an akami. So it's not always like this sense of divinity in like a hierarchical fashion. It's more like a sense of divinity of like what is truly beautiful within this universe. And so they have, there's akamis that are physical in this realm, but then there's also the akami that are, in different heavenly realms. And they still have their creation myth. They still have like, kind of like how all creation myths start with some sort of void or some sort of, something prior to space existing. They still have all of that, but just a more colloquial definition of God for them is, I find very fascinating. This is Casey, and I'm done.
Thanks. And real quick, Jennifer, before you go, we're going to be doing a Zoom on Sunday. We wanted to do it on Zoom because, there's a lot of people that have Android or can't get on Clubhouse. So we're going to do a lot of these topics on Zoom once a week, maybe. So we're going to do our first one on lucid dream and manifestation, which we did on Clubhouse. But it's going to be great. There's going to be a lot more people joining. I think we're just trying to take it to the next level and share these thoughts with the world. So if you guys want to register, there's a link in my Instagram bio. So check that out, and hopefully you guys can keep joining in.
There is a technique that I just learned about a week ago. I'm taking a class with Charlie Morley from Mind Valley Academy, and he talks about integrating whatever you believe in, any faith you have, let's say Buddha or Jesus, whatever it is that you believe in, try to integrate it within you, which is the characteristics, like the kindness, the love, and the compassion. Those are my three favorite ones, of course. But so when you before you go to sleep, set the intention that you want to integrate yourself with that deity or whatever you believe in, and and then write it down or make a sketch or something if that helps, or have a picture of it under your pillow, or look at it and then put it under your pillow, and then just imagine that image right in front of you, and let that be your last thought before going to sleep. So I have done that before, and this is what happened to me. I was thinking of Buddha, and imagine that image right in front of me as I felt asleep. I start dozing and feeling like asleep and not sleep in that hypnagogic state. And suddenly, right when I gained awareness, I was out of my body. And then right in front of me, there's this big Buddha, illuminating right there and there. And I remember like my astral body getting integrating with that Buddha. And then I felt like I was Buddha. So it was so powerful, the energy that I was receiving from that experience. And then after I wake up, I was still like vibrating from the integration with that Buddha. And since then, I have been feeling actually more calm, more relaxed. I feel like my mind is more clear, and I just have no worries. Just me. It's just me. Nothing else. Just me, and tangled with everything and everyone. So I encourage you to try that. It's called integrating yourself with you. What you believe in, the embodiment of something, a character that you want to incorporate in your life, that can help you improve yourself. Let's say if you get doubts or angry or lack of faith or something, you can call on anything. It doesn't have to be a deity. It can be a character of a person that you like to have this embodiment with. Like someone mentioned Elon Musk, that guy is smart, that guy is intelligent. So you can also embody that kind of mentality, that kind of characteristic that you like to have, or be more brave, perhaps a sumo wrestler or someone strong that you want to become. So that's it's called integration of character in the lucid dream. So I encourage you, if you want to try it, it's really fun and it works. So that's something I learned last couple of weeks. So this is Jaime Andoni speaking.
Thanks, Jaime. I think that's awesome. And like, to add to that, like I totally agree with what you're saying. I sometimes, incubate the idea, and also sometimes when I'm lucid, I'll try to summon a god. I was just saying this a second ago. I'll summon gods or angels or, any deities that are greater than me or supposedly greater than me, right? And, just try to get insight from them and talk to them and hear about them, give them acknowledgement. I feel like that gives them power and keeps them alive. So it's totally powerful, and that's one of the beautiful things about dreams, and it all ties back into the dream world and why it's so powerful. So, yeah, I agree, and thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
I wanted to say about how, you guys were talking before about how like seeing a god or a deity in a dream that you like hadn't recognized, and then you like wake up and Google it and find it. The fact that you can find it on Google, I think, is really interesting, because that it implies that it's still a belief in this universe. But then it begs the question, if gods exist in different levels of consciousness, would this be a dream of a higher level of consciousness? And the deities and beliefs that we're interacting with just be merely a local thing for that level. So, for example, in going back to Indian mythology again, they say everything is Maya, meaning not quite meaning illusion, because illusion means it's not real, but Maya still means it's real. It just means that the objects of the experience aren't real. So, for example, if you dream of drinking a glass of water, when you wake up, you found the glass of water didn't exist. It wasn't a physical object, but you can't say you didn't experience drinking water. You still tasted it. You still felt if it was hot or cold. You still had the sensation of it. You can't say it was completely unreal. It's just the object of it. So at what level is things existing, and at what level is it an illusion? So not really a statement, but just kind of food for thought, things to think about. This is Casey, and I'm done.
Thanks, Casey. Yeah, that's true. And like, it makes me think that like the term real is just so relative, because everything is real and nothing is real at the same time. So yeah, I mean, you're completely right. It's real to us if we give it power. And that's just such an interesting concept. So it's just crazy interesting. But anyway, I hope you guys can follow our club on Clubhouse. The Dream World is what we're calling it. We also have a podcast and an Instagram. So, basically it's just an open conversation. We just love having these crazy conversations about different things. So hopefully you guys can just keep tuning in every week. And yeah, it was great to have you guys.
Yes, thank you, Casey, for your kind words. That's very nice of you. And I enjoy listening to you too, by the way. You have some great insights, so keep at it, because it's great. It's great to listen to people and different perspectives. And we all learn from each other, because we all have our own experiences. They are unique to us. And even if some people don't believe in it, it's okay, it's your own experience. And you honor that. You cultivate your own growing, your own learning experiences. So that is for you to spiritually mature and things like that. So honor your own self and your own experiences. That's all I can say. I'm done speaking.
So if you like this episode and you want to learn more about dreaming, follow and subscribe and check us out on our next episode. And if you have any specific questions or things you want to learn about, just send a message or leave a review. Or even if you have any crazy dream experiences that you want to share with me, come on the show and tell us all about it, because I want to know everything. I want to explore the universe and get to know the dream world. So check out the Dream World podcast next time on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, or whatever you use. And also check us out on FeedSpot blog. We were ranked number 7 on the top 15 lucid dreaming podcasts you must follow in 2021. So check it out. The link is in the description below. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time. Peace and blessings.